Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are here live on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are so excited that you're here with us today because it's Tuesday, and today we are going to be talking about sustainable leadership, driving business growth while protecting the planet. Okay, I know that a lot of us, when we come together on Tuesdays, we're thinking in terms of how do we protect our legacy? How do we build a legacy? How do we build our family businesses? What do we do to make sure that these things that we're doing are sustainable? But, now we need to take it to another level because we want to talk about how do we drive business growth while protecting the planet. And so this is a key item for us to really be thinking about because, for most of us, we are in a position where in our daily work, we are thinking about what it is that we are called to do. What can we you know think about doing while we have these companies, and how do we make them work in the manner that is what we intended, for putting together, everything that we had to do for business. And so we're going to share some slides with you. I'm going to present my screen. So give me just a second to get that set up because I think it's important. Um, Jerron, can you help me with that? Do you think you can pull those in for me? There we go. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay. So as we're looking here, we want to be thinking about a couple of things. Um, how do we balance our business growth, with environmental stewardship? And a lot of times, when we are thinking about environmental stewardship, we're not necessarily thinking about it from the standpoint of what can we really do as business owners, with our companies and in our buildings. Um, you know, Sometimes it's really simple, because I know that at our location, and I've shared this before, a lot of the things that we have set up there are designed for people to be thinking about environmental stewardship. We have where they can bring their water bottles and refill them. We have reusable coffee cups. We are, set up, for people to do business in ways that are more eco-friendly, and so we have some eco-friendly practices that we put in place. I know in the building they have larger windows for those who have windows in their offices, so that they can utilize natural light and they don't have to use the lighting that costs money. Okay, but we also have all LED lighting through that building, and so it's very much a sustainability process there, for all of us who are doing business from that location. We all get an opportunity to share in the process of making sure that we are doing business, um, and thinking about our planet while we're doing business. We have some long-term profitability that we have been able to experience in our company personally because of how we do business. We pass down our devices, instead of, taking the devices and, turning them in or trading them in for other devices. Not saying that that's not a good practice, because it is a good practice for people who don't have a reason to pass down devices. But we do pass down devices. We trade devices throughout the company. We actually pass down devices to other, to kids who are in school or people who are just starting a company. We send devices to other countries. I mean, we do a lot, to make sure that we are not wasting. And we do believe that being mindful of how we do business, how do we, create a positive impact on the planet while we're, doing business in our industry, those are part of our core values. And so it's something to be thinking about, when you can make a case for sustainability. And so let's look at the business case for sustainability. Why should businesses be thinking about being sustainable? And this works as well for people who are working from home as it does for people who are working in the office, because I kid you not, and I'll tell you this and we'll jump right into the business case. I remember when we decided that we were no longer going to buy cases of water. That was something we were not going to be doing. And that meant that we had to go to reusable containers and this is my, daily driver here. For what I put my water in, and it's a glass that I love, and it has a wonderful, little straw, and I use that all day long, and I wash it and reuse it, and I use it for tea, and I use it for coffee, and I also use it for water. So I have two of them, one for hot, one for cold. When we're, leaving the office and we have to be in the car, I have these wonderful little luxury water bottles that I carry with me, and I have one for hot and one for cold. And this is what keeps us, thinking about making sure we're doing our part, what we can do. We also went through and we threw away all of the toxic chemicals in our home, and we were working from home, and so that meant that we were also getting rid of lots of things that were plastic and that weren't BPA free, and replacing them with BPA free containers, BPA free, plastic ware and things of that nature that we would use on the go, or when we were, in our, home office, that was not the physical home location. And so saying this, I want you to be thinking about what you can do in your location. What is it, the little thing that you can do? One other thing that we decided we were going to do is get rid of paper towels. And so that means that we have, linens and, towels that are used to dry hands. They go in a bin that get washed, and we put them out again so that they can be utilized, again, to dry hands. Okay. And so we do these things because of the fact that we're concerned about the sustainability of the planet. So let's talk about the case for sustainability. Well, the first thing that I want to talk about is the savings. Okay. Sustainable initiatives like energy efficiency and waste reduction can lead to significant cost savings over time. We were able to reduce the orders of paper towels in the office in California, from, us ordering paper towels every month to every other month, actually, and then to once every 3 months, because of the fact that we decided to move to hand dryers in our restrooms. And so we didn't need paper towels for much, except we used them for single uses when we were cleaning during the pandemic. And so that's how we got down to once every other month. And then we actually ended up at once every 3 months. And we still don't use them that often, and we only use them for specific things, very specific things that require, a towel that is a single-use towel, to keep us from spreading germs or disease. So we have been able to, realize the savings of, not ordering plastic bottles of water, because we use filtered water, and the filters last, for 30 gallons per pitcher. And we are able to, realize the savings there, because of the fact that, we don't have to have the plastic, and we don't have to concern ourselves with waste, and the other thing that we decided to do in terms of how we use our trash cans and how often we need to use plastic bags that we purchase, we absolutely are doing some things with regards to how we're emptying the trash and not building up a lot of trash, to put in trash containers. And so there are ways that you can be mindful about what you're doing to keep yourselves from having to spend money there. But for risk mitigation, this is really something I want you to think about. Proactively addressing environmental and social issues can help your company avoid regulatory fines and reputational damage. We had a situation that happened at our California office where the fire department came and we weren't even aware that they were coming. They came, we weren't paying attention to the fact that they were outside. We had no knowledge, and they looked around on our property and they were able to give us ideas about things that we could do to avoid fines and to avoid, fires and other types of hazards that could be caused when you allow things to just pile up, in areas. And so it was really amazing to hear them share that with us, because we were able to quickly take care of it. And, like I said, avoid fines and sometimes very costly, hazards that happen when you have leftover trash just hanging out in places. And then there's a competitive advantage. Consumers are increasingly prioritizing sustainability. So companies that embrace it, you end up with a market edge. People like it when you're, socially responsible, when you are environmentally sustainable. That said something to them about what you think about when you're doing business. And so it's important for you to be thinking about, how do I represent in front of my audience, in front of my industry, in front of my vendors, and in front of my customers. There is a place for having that socially responsible brand, that has the planet in mind. You're thinking about the next generation, and when people see that, that is pretty impressive. And then, thinking about the environmental impact that you have, just from your traditional business practice. Unfortunately, it's not a thing, and I'm not a fan, because you end up with resource depletion. Unsustainable extraction and consumption of natural resources, they lead to scarcity long term. And when you have pollution and emissions, you have a greenhouse gas emission, waste, and toxins from industrial processes. These things harm the environment, and you have an impact there that you cannot mitigate a lot of times. But you also have biodiversity loss, the habitat destruction. And when you are not sustainable, you create a situation where you destroy what is necessary for us to be able to, continue to have plants and plant life and animals functioning the way that they're supposed to in the places where they need to be, so that it helps our environment. The ecosystem is disrupted, and it's threatened when you are not paying attention to the planet and what it is that needs to be done to sustain it. We are threatening the delicate balance of nature when we don't do what we know to do with regards to taking on these wonderful opportunities to live life green, if I can say it that way. And green initiatives are a thing. I know a lot of people are feeling like, what, it's not really worth it for us to do that. It's not that important, but really it is. When you think about it for the long haul, you want to be around as long as possible, and you want to make sure that your children and your children's children are as well. And so when you do things to help the planet, you change the way that the sustainable nature of things is going. Okay. And then for climate change, businesses contribute to the global climate crisis through their carbon footprint and energy use. And so when you remove yourself from that ecosystem by having 100% sustainable practices, then it does help and save the planet for the generations coming after us. So what is the the model. What is the model that we want to embrace? The circular economy model. Well, we want to be first looking at what can we reduce, minimizing resource consumption and waste generation through efficient design and production processes. That's going to be so important, because if you can in your company, do something similar to what we did, go around and think about what you can get rid of. Okay, we got rid of water bottles. That was a big deal for us because we were buying a lot of water at one point in time, and in bottles, as opposed to spending more time on the filters and more money, on the system that would be filtering the water, which it could be something very similar to what we use, like the zero water pitchers, which we've talked about when we had our episode where we talked about water. But it also could be something very simple like a water filtration system that is throughout your office, to make sure that whenever someone puts their cup under a faucet or under a dispenser, they're getting quality water. Or you could bring in piped in water, from some source that where you may have a filtration system is on the actual water source, and the water that's coming into the building is all clean, good water for drinking purposes. Okay, so when we're thinking about waste generation and efficient design, okay, there are some things that people don't really think about, is that sometimes our offices, the way that they're designed, it creates an opportunity for us to waste more. And so there are ways that you can look at the room or look at the space and think about what you can do to make sure that there are not as many trips to the trash can, and people don't have to bring things in from the outside of the office that would create waste, and create a consumption that you're not looking to have. Okay, the other things that we want to do is reuse, repurposing products and materials to extend their useful life and reduce the need for new resources is a very good practice. And so something simple like putting out a recycle container, okay, or a repurpose container alongside of the recycle container. You could have three waste bins, or three waste bins, but not all for waste. One could be for things that you cannot recycle, that only can be thrown into the garbage. Another bin, of course, could be where you actually are putting your recyclables, which we're going to talk about recycling in a minute. But then the repurpose bin could be something that you just have, it has a useful life still, but you don't have a need for it. And so having things in the repurpose bin could be a place where people will go to see what's there and see if they can make something useful out of it or use it for its intended purpose beyond what you were able to use. So that's going to be really important. And then, of course, in the recycling, you want to recover and reprocess materials at the end of their useful life to create something new. And so the way that we do that is by, collecting the recyclables and putting them in a place where they can go to be processed or reprocessed, to have another life after their life. I talk to people a lot about the fact that I wear a shoe by a company called Revile, and this particular company makes the shoes. The upper of the shoes comes from recycled water bottles. The tops from the water bottles are used for another part of the shoe, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, they have a knit. The actual fabric that's used to make the shoe is a knit fabric, but they try to use sustainable materials because of the fact that it helps the planet. And then, of course, regenerating, restoring natural systems and replenishing resources to maintain, a healthy, sustainable ecosystem. So you can regenerate, by just doing your part to restore. the system and to replenish the resources. Sometimes that might mean something as simple as watering the grass, okay? um, but watering it in a way that will make it so that it's, going to grow, and be utilized in the manner that it was intended and not wasting the water. So that might be, using a soaker system or some other system that is, going to regenerate, of course, but without wasting the water. Okay, so be thinking about those things because it's important. Now, renewable energy and efficiency initiatives, this is a huge political um, discussion amongst a lot of people right now because there are people talking about the fact that wind energy and solar energy are really not helping our planet as much as people think they are. Please excuse me. I am so, so sorry. I have been working crazy hours, and so I didn't really mean to do that. But I know that it's unfortunately where I am right now. The time is a lot later than it normally would be, where I am usually. So just saying, I'm on the East Coast today, and so my time frames are a little bit later. But the solar power, harnessing the sun's energy to generate clean, renewable electricity for business operations is, I think, one of the best ways you can demonstrate sustainability in your company. If you have an option for putting solar power on your roof or in your area on the ground or wherever you need to do it, it is one of the best ways to generate clean, renewable electricity. And we have done the the research. We're finding that no matter what people are telling you, solar is still a better way of providing energy than many of the optional ways for a business, to use. Wind energy is also very good, leveraging the power of wind to produce sustainable emissions free electricity is very, very important because what we are seeing is that you can store the energy, you can collect and store. And so even with the solar power and the wind energy, years ago, our company was involved in a project in which we were looking to create solar and wind hybrid farms where both, of those energies would be available. And so we wanted to make sure that people understood, the use of wind, not in with such large uh, wind, instruments as what you see here, but the smaller ones, would be, where you could have 6 or 7 or 10 smaller wind instruments on a smaller form factor that could be in your backyard, which could be run from 3.5-mile-hour winds instead of having to have the larger ones, which take 16 to 17 mile-an-hour winds. And so it's very important for you to think about, options when you're thinking about the solar and the wind. And then, of course, using more energy efficient practices, implementing technologies and practices to reduce consumption and the carbon footprint. So whether that be, having your LED lights on a timer, where they come on at a certain time, they go off at a certain time, and it's very regulated. And so, or you're using more natural light for longer in the day. And then, for people who are working at night, then you're using the LED lights. You're using a specific kind of LED light that has a less of a carbon footprint. And so these are all really important tools, okay? And for people who are, running companies where they have to do deliveries or they're needing to use some sort of transportation, using electric vehicles, that is a thing. Okay, and so, our company has owned several electric vehicles. And so we, try to make sure that if it's on the company's dime, we're using the electric vehicle if we can use the electric vehicle because of sometimes, it's just the length of the drive is just way longer than the amount of range that we have on the electric vehicles that we currently own. But I will say this, that if you have the opportunity to get an electric vehicle that can drive a little further, it might be worth your while to do so, because again, there are subsidies for it, so you can take advantage of those, and you can also take advantage of making sure that you're doing your part to help the again, the energy reducing, okay, carbon footprint. Okay, and so electric mobility, when we're talking about transitioning to the electric vehicles to lower transportation related emissions and fuel costs, we are seeing lots of companies buy the electric these electric vans, the electric trucks, the electric SUVs, the electric sprinters. Those are vehicles that we're seeing a lot. And we notice that, as companies are doing this, they're bringing down their cost as well, because they're not having to purchase fuel, and they're not having to have as much maintenance. The type of maintenance that they would have is far less financially than what it would be if they were not using the electric vehicles. So let's take a look at some responsible sourcing and supply chain management. So supplier evaluation, you could institute a program where you assess your suppliers based on their environmental and social performance standards. You could choose to only work with companies that are, sustainable in their core values and the way that they carry those core values out. All right. And then you could also have partnerships collaboratively and work with suppliers to set and achieve sustainable goals. And so if you're thinking about only providing certain things and you want things to be sustainable, then you could be working with companies that are lending towards making sure that is a possible activity for you. And then traceability and transparency, ensuring that others are able to see you as you're doing what you're doing so that it can have an effect on them is important. Ensuring visibility into the origin and the impact of materials, the source and supply. That's going to be important, because when you can demonstrate to others that, you are sustainable, then you set up a precedent and give them something that they can follow. Okay, so reducing waste and promoting recycling. Well, for waste reduction, it optimizes processes and to minimize waste generation, reusing materials and finding alternative uses for byproducts. So having a plan for, if you are a restaurant, you're going to be composting, right? You're not going to just be a restaurant and throwing everything in the trash when there is another useful life for items that were leftovers or byproducts of what were happening in your retail store, in your restaurant. Okay, and then having recycling programs, that's going to be key, because when you can have a program where you can implement cohesive or comprehensive recycling initiatives to diverse waste from the landfills and incineration, and to make sure that things that are going in the waste bin are actually things that need to go in the waste bin. Okay, and I want to really share about this last one in terms of composting, or the last two. Turning organic waste into nutrient-rich soil. That is big, because when you have the ability to help to make sure that the nitrogen is back in the soil, you create this rich environment for plants to grow. You're actually changing the quality of your food stores. And so that's going to be very important for people who, are growing food. They want the compost materials that you have left over, and sometimes we'll come by and pick them up if you offer. So look for opportunities to collaborate, in that, so that you're not throwing away so much waste. And then zero waste targets. If you have a budget that you have set for making something a zero waste initiative, meaning that you are only using the reusable containers and things in your location, that you're using less plastic bags and things. These are goals that you can set to have a completely closed loop, waste-free system at your location. All right, so how do you cultivate a sustainability focused culture? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to educate. You got to bring people into a place of awareness where they are empowered with knowledge and resources so they can understand and embrace sustainability. It can't just be your core value, just because you're the one who created the company. You have to make sure that every part of your company is every person, every team, okay, every vendor, that you're doing business with, they understand what you all are about. So they won't even, be suggesting things that would not fit into the culture that you're creating. And they'll be doing the things necessary to make sure that you keep that culture what it is. And then employee engagement, encouraging and rewarding sustainability driven initiatives and behaviors among the workforce. That's important to let people know that, hey, we're putting out some, awards for this because this is our way that we do things in our company, and we want you all to participate. And lastly, you want to have a commitment from the top down, okay, to, have clear long-term vision for sustainability and transformation. You got to have that transformation occur in order for people to understand the importance of, sustainability, and for them to watch out for it and to continue to be a part of the process of changing things. Okay, so how do we measure and report on our sustainability metrics? I'm big on business intelligence, so let's take a look at it. Well, for tracking and reporting on carbon emissions, energy consumption, waste usage, and waste generation, this is something that you can do using software. You can also use apps. Or you could just use good old paper and pencil, okay, to get a handle on what is really happening at your company, with your carbon emissions, the energy consumption. What did we change this month? What did we change last month? What did we change last year? So that you can understand, your path to a more sustainable future, and what you can continue to do from there. And then also have employees, well-being monitored, the community engagement monitored, and supply chain labor practices monitored, so that you can get some metrics to share, with others outside of your company as well as those inside. Okay, and with your economic metrics, you want to be able to assess the financial benefits and the cost savings and share that information with people in the company. When you can say, we saved 5,000 water bottles this year, and this is how much money we saved by not using 5,000 water bottles, that can have a real big impact on the people that you're working with. And you want to be transparent about it to the public as well by disclosing your sustainability performance and what your plans are. It's really important because stakeholders, well-wishers, customers, okay, they're looking for you to be more accountable, and they're looking for how they can, see a way forward in doing business with you when you are sustainable. So what is the conclusion to all of this matter? Well, the path to a sustainable future really does begin with leadership, okay? And so when you embrace sustainable leadership, you can drive long-term business growth while you're actively contributing to the protection of the planet. You can be doing both things at the same time through innovative, eco-friendly practices and a commitment to positive environment and social impact. You can pave the way for a more sustainable future. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are so glad that you joined us here today for this particular episode, on how do we grow grow our businesses and become more sustainable and protect our planet at the same time. We look forward to seeing you again for another one of these episodes right here on our platform in YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. Well, Twitter is now X. Sorry about that. Facebook, and wherever else you are finding us. And we'll see you again next time.